People who live in small towns. What is the hot local controversy right now? This lovable dope/lowlife everyone loved that worked at the only Dunkin' in town was rumored to have died. Someone mentioned him in an RIP post in a local FB group, and the town revolted all at once in mourning until the lowlife in question spoke up and told everyone that he just moved out of state with family.
That's a classic small-town moment. Everyone thinking they lost someone important only to find out he just skipped town. It shows how much people can care, even about someone who didn't exactly lead a perfect life. I mean, it's pretty funny too. Imagine the shock and relief when he popped up saying he was just fine. Just goes to show how connected people can feel, even if they don't know each other well.
My dog's girlfriend just had puppies. She's the dog next door, and every day comes to my back door with a toy. I let my dog out, and they play together and swim. Then they come back, have lunch at my place, and nap together. After a couple hours, they wake up and she goes home. They have a great relationship, which is why I haven't told him the puppies aren't his, and he's neutered. His best friend is the father. My other neighbor's dog also comes to visit, and he actually knocks on the door for my dog to come out and play. Apparently, he's been walking right past our house and having sleepovers with my dog's girlfriend at her place. Now, there are 8 puppies that look nothing like my dog. He either doesn't know or doesn't care, and I'm worried he's too young to have 8 stepdogs.
That's an interesting situation. Your dog seems to have a pretty laid-back approach to life, which is good. The whole thing with the puppies sounds like a classic case of misunderstanding in the dog world. Not sure how he hasn't figured it out yet, but maybe he just enjoys the time spent with his friend more than the details. It'll be fun to see how they all get along, even if they aren't related.
Someone discovered job listings for a Target in our town, so now everyone thinks a Target is coming. But that rumor has been around for decades. We have 3 Walmarts but no Target. The closest one is 35 minutes away. The person provided screenshots of the job listings. They're seemingly real. A local person with real estate connections says they've been told that they're buying a certain plot. Who knows? We might get a Target.
It's kind of funny how these rumors circulate. I remember when everyone thought a big store would finally come to our town. You get all excited, but then nothing happens. 3 Walmarts is a lot, and yet people still hope for something new. Those job listings might be real, but I've seen people get hyped before, only to be disappointed. But hey, if it happens, cool. If not, well, we still have our Walmarts.
10 years ago, a young man killed his mom, stepdad, and then himself. They said he had mental health issues. Last week, a friend of the young man posted on our town's Facebook page respectfully asking what happened because he had moved away when he was young and had never learned that his friend died. People were awful to the poor kid who asked. They listed all of the great qualities of the mom and stepdad and berated this kid for talking about what a great friend the murderer was in his original post. I still feel bad for how people treated the kid who just asked respectfully what exactly happened.
That's a heavy situation. It's tough when someone is just trying to connect and understand their past, but people jump to conclusions. It seems like everyone wants to focus on the tragedy of the victims instead of the kid just wanting to remember his friend. It's sad how life can be messy, and instead of support, the kid faced negativity. Makes you think how people cope with such stories.
Not a controversy, but my absolute favorite remote northern BC story. Some areas can only communicate via radio and sat links. So the local radio station gives daily road condition updates in the winter as they are radioed in by community members. One particular long section of a very remote dirt main didn't have any reports come in, so the news/weather guy asked if anyone could chime in on its current state. A minute later, radio crackling. Nothing out here but me and in Moose. I've named him Big Ted. For the following at least 3 months, I worked out there oil and gas comms. We got daily reports on the status of Big Ted with every road report.
That's a neat story. It's funny how a moose can become a local celebrity just like that. I can imagine the community coming together through those updates. It's like they found a way to connect even in such a remote place. Big Ted probably became a part of their daily lives, making those road reports a little more amusing. It's nice to see how something simple can bring people together.
There's a couple fighting over an RV from the 90s on the classifieds because they broke up and neither has the title. Who has the best espresso in an area with 3 coffee shops spread out over 60 miles? Things have been shockingly quiet for winter. Normally, that's when all the local gossip gets hot.
So, a couple's arguing over an RV with no title. Pretty wild. Like, you think they'd let it go or figure it out without drama. Then there's this coffee debate, 3 shops and 60 miles. Can't imagine the loyalty in that area. Lastly, winter gossip is usually non-stop. It's strange there's nothing happening. Guess people are keeping to themselves this year. Just an odd time, I guess.
A local church volunteered to allow about 15 homeless people to stay there overnight on an emergency basis if the temperature got too low. Residents were not at all happy. They flooded the local city council meetings. One person complained that we spend too much time worrying about the unprivileged and need to worry more about the privileged.
It's interesting how people react to situations like this. You'd think a bit of compassion would be a no-brainer. But I guess some just can't see past their own experiences. It's a reminder that everyone has their own perspective, and sometimes they can be pretty narrow. The discussion could have opened up about community support, but it seems that's often lost in anger. Just a sad reality sometimes.
Our Stewart's is getting a fancy new, improved building. Very exciting. Unfortunately, this means the Subway, one of 2 restaurants in the village, and the only one open past lunch, will have to move. This has locals very divided. The location Subway once has some residents up in arms at the thought of the extra traffic. The new location would be a block away from the current location.
It's kind of funny how a simple restaurant move can stir up so much drama. I remember when a local diner tried to relocate in my town. Some people were all for it, thinking it would bring more business. Others were ready to protest, worried about traffic and noise. In the end, the diner moved, and everyone got used to it. It's just another day in a small town, I guess.
Whether the new Mexican restaurant, which replaced an old Mexican restaurant, is closed temporarily or permanently, and how soon it will be replaced by an even newer Mexican restaurant, even though everyone complains that we already have too many Mexican restaurants, but they won't support anything else.
It's funny how people complain about too many Mexican places but still flock to them. That spot changed so many times, it's hard to keep track. Everyone's waiting for the new place to open, even after all the back and forth. I guess they just want what they want. It's kind of like a cycle. One opens, another closes, and people still want more tacos.
How to get on or off the island. The only commercial transportation service to get on or off this island is one specific airline, and that airline halted all flights 5 days ago. Unless you know a captain willing to boat you over on their personal boat to another island to fly on a major air carrier, you're stuck. I mean, there are worse places to be stuck, but this is certainly not the first time this has happened, and some people have some pretty dire medical issues that need to be cared for off-island, so this is not so great. The controversy has been, for a long time, why are there no competing transportation services, additional airlines to serve the island, inter-island ferries, etc.?
Sounds frustrating. I've had a friend stuck on a small island during a similar situation. The only ferry was cancelled, and he was waiting for days for a ride. It's crazy how dependent you can become on one service. He ended up chartering a boat, but it cost him a lot. They really need to sort out better transport options for these places. It's not great for anyone needing help.
A city council member got pulled over for suspected DUI and went on FB saying it wasn't fair because the prosecutor's girlfriend got pulled over for DUI a few months ago, and the prosecutor heard the call on police scanners and showed up and told the cops nothing to see here, go home. Now everyone is arguing about it on FB, and the prosecutor went into the comments calling his detractors orange-fingered Cheeto eaters.
This whole situation is a mess. A public figure getting pulled over and then playing the victim card on social media isn't surprising. The comments from the prosecutor are just adding fuel to the fire. It's wild how quickly things escalate online, and you can see both sides argue back and forth. In the end, it just seems like a petty drama that won't end well for anyone involved.
My rural Bayou hometown is getting their first roundabout, and the city's Facebook page posted a video on how to properly use it. Everyone is losing their minds. Also, they're probably getting snow tomorrow, so that's going to be a shit show. I no longer live there, but my entire family does, so that's the local scoop.
Sounds like a classic small-town situation. People can get really worked up over stuff like roundabouts. The snow will probably make it even more chaotic. I can imagine your family has some good stories about it. Glad I don't have to deal with that anymore. Just watching it from a distance is enough entertainment.
My town is known for restaurants in a tourist-adjacent area. A bunch of favorite restaurants/beer gardens/bakery type places are surprise closing cause rent, overhead, food, and cost of business is just too much. About 10 since the new year. One of them got a best of the town last year. Even some chains have been open one day, boarded up the next. People are kind of shocked. My theory is that they have priced the locals out and tourism isn't a thing. Even casual places are super expensive. $50 easy for two with no alcohol.
It's tough to see favorite spots shut down like that. The pandemic really changed things, and now high costs are hitting the local businesses hard. When places start prioritizing tourists, locals end up feeling it. It's frustrating to think about paying so much for a simple meal. This situation really shows how vulnerable small businesses can be when the balance tips. It's a shame to see once busy places now empty.
This was from a few years ago, and at the place I used to work at. Basically, a few years ago, two of the local Christian middle schools decided to have a friendly football game. Well, the game went well until the end, when they were both still tied. One of the schools decided to pull a trick play called the razzle-dazzle. When they yelled hike, the quarterback looked at the ball and pointed to the ref as if there was something wrong with it. Everyone stopped to look around to see what was going on, but in the commotion, the quarterback grabbed the ball and then gunned it for the end zone. They were given the points, and they won the game. Apparently, parents were pissed. People were salty about this game for years, even when both schools decided to combine. This apparently was still a point of tension. That was over 10 years ago, and both schools are still in the middle of combining.
That's a classic story. You have two schools getting all worked up over a football game. The trick play caught everyone off guard. It's funny how something like that can stick in people's minds for years. Even now, with the schools trying to combine, you can see that old rivalry still causing some tension. Just shows how sports can create some lasting memories, even if they're not all positive.
Two cases of nearly the same thing. Our Humane Society's former owner was caught stealing funds and is now in trial. A bar about 15 minutes away from the first story, their owner was apparently caught stealing tips as well, but no court trial or anything. DR, people needs to redirecting money from the business fund to their personal wallets.
It's wild how stuff like this happens. You think organizations and businesses are run by trustworthy people, but then you hear about these cases. The Humane Society's owner stealing funds is pretty messed up, especially when it affects animals. And then there's that bar owner, just pocketing tips. It makes you wonder how common this really is. People just can't seem to keep personal gains separate from their responsibilities.
In our region, a 48-year-old resident stole alcohol and candy from a store. Penny issues, literally a handful of candy and a bottle of cheap alcohol. He's going to jail for 2 years. Why? Because he was wanted by an APB for something else. Also, a grenade was found between potatoes in a factory producing French fries, both in last week.
It's wild how things go down sometimes. This guy just wanted some cheap alcohol and candy, and now he's facing 2 years in jail. Guess being wanted for something else caught up with him. And then you have a grenade popping up in a potato factory. Just seems like last week was packed with surprises. Can't make this stuff up, really.
The main headlines of my local Facebook group are: someone called the cops on the McDonald's for forgetting a coffee. Hit and run outside of the same McDonald's the next day. I think the person is in the hospital now. Someone hit a pedestrian in the Walmart parking lot the same day as the first McDonald's incident. Everyone involved was fine though.
Seems like that McDonald's is a hot spot for drama lately. A misplaced coffee leading to cops is wild. Then, the next day, a hit and run? That's rough. Hope the person's okay. And to top it off, someone getting hit in the Walmart lot on the same day? Just a lot going on in a short time. Makes you wonder about the craziness of everyday life around there.
It happened last year, and they failed to do it, but the main power company in our state wanted to put about 1,500 acres of our town underwater to build a new reservoir. People flipped out. The news got involved. One lady made everybody signs to put in their yards, and the local gas station had a sign with the devil on a bulldozer making fun of the power company.
That's interesting. I remember when big projects like that come up, people usually get really worked up. So many opinions and signs everywhere. The gas station sign sounds like it added some humor to a tense situation. It's funny how a little creativity can lighten the mood when things get serious. I guess it brought the community together, just like those yard signs did.
Rich real estate developer wants to buy up about 3 to 5 large farms to build what he calls affordable housing. A concerned citizen within the county government leaked to the county newspaper that said affordable housing is actually plans for around 200-odd McMansions in the $750,000 plus range. Then it turned out that said developer is the son of a former developer who bought up a bunch of land to build a coal mining-themed amusement park in a nearby town. Said town got overhyped by it that they changed their town name again. Then COVID hit, and the developer died from COVID, and the next of kin wanted nothing with it, so they scrapped plans and sold the properties. After this came to light, a bunch of farmers in the region are refusing to sell their land to said developer.
It's interesting how things unfold. A developer wants to build affordable housing but plans to sell expensive homes instead. The backstory with the amusement park adds a weird twist, especially with the name change. When the developer passed away and the family pulled out, it left a mess. Now, farmers are standing their ground, refusing to sell. It's like the community is pushing back against all these plans that don't really benefit them.
For the last few months, there's been complaints about this house that has been abandoned by the tenant, but they left their pets inside, a few cats and a couple dogs. The cats died a few weeks ago, and that's when people really started getting upset. They called the police, but they wouldn't do anything because the tenant was not the owner of the house. The owner happened to be the tenant's grandparents who lived in the next town over. Evidently, they're in and out of jail frequently are difficult to contact. People have been posting on FB for days about potentially breaking in to save the dogs. Finally, a few days ago, the police broke in and got the dogs, but no news on the lady who dipped out.
That's a pretty rough situation. It's tough to see animals stuck in a place like that. Neighbors trying to help out shows there's still some good people around. Glad the police stepped in eventually, but it's a shame it took so long. Hopefully those dogs are okay now and can find a better home. Just goes to show how complicated these things can be with tenants and ownership issues.
We have 4 stoplights in town. One of them is currently on the fritz, and for about half the day won't turn green from a certain direction despite the sensors being activated. The lights will just cycle through and neglect to let one side go, which is resulting in a bunch of really sketchy driving, especially at night. This particular stoplight is on a state highway, LOL 2 lanes each direction normal road, in the part of town that is designated as City Highway. Mind you, we only have one main road that runs like 30-something miles from end to end as we're on an island. It being in the part of town that is city rather than borough highway means that the borough can't use our local funds to fix it. Instead, it has to run through the DOT, which is based out of a population center many hours away that you can't drive to, as we're an island. So they basically don't care. We're only 8K people with something like 45 miles of road total. So we're living in washboard road pothole hell, and our main traffic light doesn't work.
That sounds pretty rough. I remember when a traffic light in my town was down for weeks. It was chaos, cars just ignoring the signals. People had to take turns, which led to some awkward standoffs. The city didn't seem to care, and the fix took forever because they kept passing the responsibility around. It's like they don't realize how frustrating it is for us everyday drivers. You'd think they'd prioritize safety.
My parents' small town, legally a city, is in the next ring of expansion for a major city, where the previous ring has started to get too expensive and overdeveloped, so people move on to the cheaper housing of the next closest small cities and towns. The mayor and board voted to expand the city by like a quarter mile and gave developers permission to build a mega neighborhood with 600 houses in a small section of land. The city approved it because it would add millions to the taxes. And a fat bonus to the city board. There isn't enough road infrastructure at the moment to support that many people, as well as the developer being infamous for building basically cardboard houses that have tons of issues. All of the houses will be rentals too. People are also worried that the neighborhood will become slums in the next decade. Regardless though, it marks the beginning of the end for their small town.
It's a tough situation. Small towns often struggle with this kind of growth. People want affordable housing, but the consequences can lead to overcrowding and poor living conditions. The concern about quality is valid, especially if the developer has a bad reputation. It feels like the charm of the town might vanish under all that pressure to expand, just for quick cash. It's a complicated trade-off for the residents.
There is a wealthy farming family in the neighboring town that most people know. The son is mid-30s and has 4 kids with his wife. His wife is pregnant with a 5th kid. The problem is the son had a vasectomy. So they asked the doctor, did some tests, had some arguments, and the expecting mother confessed to sleeping with her husband's father. I think everyone in a 50-mile radius was talking about this. The grandfather/dad is pissed that people are gossiping about his family and has decided to start naming names of all his other affair partners. This small Catholic town is probably going to implode.
Sounds pretty chaotic over there. Family drama really gets people talking. The whole town gets pulled in, and it's wild how quickly secrets come out. The grandfather's response seems like an attempt to redirect the gossip, but that's probably not going to help. It's like a domino effect. Once one piece falls, everything else starts to tumble. Curious to see how this all plays out in the community.
The lady that runs the Group Town Facebook page got caught. She does fundraising for families and just anybody that needs help in the town. Seems recently the past year, it was really ramping up. Like she was doing something new every week and asking people in the group for help. Well, come to find out, she was stealing money and other things. She's basically been stealing off the top. It's a whole big thing in our town. Cops are involved, LOL.
Sounds like a wild situation. It's crazy to think someone trying to help actually ended up taking advantage of people. I guess it shows that trust can be misplaced sometimes. The fact that it got the cops involved really escalates it. I can imagine the discussions going on in town right now. Just goes to show you never really know what's going on behind the scenes.
My in-laws live in a town where they own their house. In 2019, the dam built around the town, which is a bog, broke and destroyed many homes. Many houses were leveled and new homes built in their place. In-laws bought a house after the city fixed the dam in 2021, just to find out the newest inspection of the dam confirmed it isn't a long-term solution due to global warming effect on rising water levels. Suddenly everyone is in denial of global warming because it means their properties are worth less than half of what they paid.
It sounds like a tough situation for your in-laws. They probably felt some relief after buying their house, thinking the worst was over. Then finding out the dam isn't actually fixed must have been frustrating. People often struggle to accept reality when it threatens their investment. It's interesting how money influences beliefs, even about something as serious as global warming. Tough spot to be in for everyone involved.
Behind my house is a protected nature area. On the other side of that is new development. In that area, there's a beaver causing all sorts of shit. We have farmers downstream freaking out, environmentalists that want studies. Jurisdiction crisis between state, federal, and local agencies. Contracts and land deals on who is allowed to do what. The dam was destroyed, but rebuilt while the legal battle is ongoing. I'm personally rooting for the beaver, who seems to have the upper hand.
That's a pretty interesting situation. Sounds like the beaver is really making waves, huh? It's crazy how much chaos one animal can create. I wonder how the farmers feel about it. Must be frustrating for everyone involved, especially with all those agencies fighting over control. It's funny how nature can throw a wrench in human plans. I guess sometimes the little guy wins.
The town's main employer for over 40 years suddenly announced Thursday that they're shutting down. It's a major corporation. While they've paid 3 times less here than they do in other states, it was the only place around with good benefits and halfway decent pay. It will devastate so many people, including the small immigrant community. They say they will provide severance packages and help the workers find other employment. But there's not much employment to be had here.
It's tough when a big employer pulls out like that. You can feel the impact on the whole community. People rely on those jobs to pay their bills and support their families. The promise of severance and job help sounds nice, but it doesn't always pan out. In smaller towns, it's hard to find new work that matches what they've lost. You really hope everyone figures things out soon.
Our notoriously corrupt city council passed some new hotel fees that somehow don't affect the half the hotels in town owned by one of the council members. This was only noticed because the once-a-month art show in town noticed a drastic decrease in people showing up from out of town and contacted people to find out why they all stopped coming. The overwhelming answer was that hotels were too expensive now because of the crazy fees charged by the city. The people who run the art show sued the council because this was clearly an abuse of power, and they were forced to rescind the fees. Now the city council is doing everything in their power to get the art show shut down.
It's wild how local politics can get. A group tries to do something positive with the art show, and then they get pushed back by the very people who are supposed to support the community. Those hotel fees just seemed like a blatant money grab. It's good to see them take a stand, but you know the council isn't going down without a fight. Just another day in the life of government drama.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.